Welcome all to this meeting. If everybody will please rise for the pledge. Would you lead us, please?
I'd be proud to. Ready?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Turn on the mic here. Roll call. Let the record show that all directors are in attendance except Director Painter. Next, we have to approve the agenda. There has been a request to remove item 4A from the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Are there any community announcements from you?
I have community announcements.
Thank you.
Yes, I do. Get my stuff together here. We have a Plain Crazy Saturday coming up this Saturday, and Bob Meyer is going to be our speaker. And he's going to be talking about when he was the flight test engineer in the SR-71B model at NASA. And he worked for NASA for 40 years and started when he was in college and just went on, and what a career it was. But Bill has been taking reservations for the room here, because I always tell everybody it's limited seating and we have tickets. So it's pretty exciting to have some of the people that we've had call from out of state. And I've got to tell you, we've got other airports from Arizona contacting us, wanting to know how they can start a Plain Crazy Saturday. And I thought, our little event, you know, they were wanting to
Better license it.
yeah, license it. We were talking about that, absolutely. But, and then the museum, Western Museum of Flight at Torrance Airport, Zamperini Field, was asking about some of the speakers we've had. And then she wants to give me a list of her speakers. So it's just an outreach to other airports all over the nation. I'm really surprised and pleased. But in April, we also have a big fly-in coming on, April 16th. And the speaker for that and the airplane that we are spotlighting is the RV-12. And that's Van's aircraft. And their engineers are going to be here talking about the Van's RV aircraft. And there's a lot of them in the valley, and Zach Reeder flies an RV-7. And Dr. Peterson just said that some students at the school are going to be building an RV-12. So it all comes together. So this is a great event on April 16th, but April 15th, the night before, in the Stu Witt Event Center, is the indoor fly-in with the rubber band model airplanes and gliders. And it is so much fun to see those kids, I mean, little ones, and I have pictures I can show you later. But I show it to guys, and that was me when I was little. But they never outgrow it, because I've got pictures of Zach Reeder throwing his glider too. I mean, they want to win the competition. So it's a fun time, and I suggest everybody come to that. It's from 5 to 11 at night. It's kind of late for little ones, but as long as they're flying airplanes, it's great. And Dan Craig is always there with his indoor flying objects. And he's IFOs. He's an amazing guy, and he built a model of the Voyager, and it is so light, it only weighs an ounce. And he flies that around, and it's just amazing. So be sure and come to that, and that's April 15th at the Witt Center. And it's free unless you want to be in the competition, and then I think it's $5 or something. So that's my report. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you to Mojave Air Spaceport for helping to sponsor the Mojave Experimental Fly-In. We also have donations from Scale Composites and from the Spaceship Company. And there was already a balance in the account of about $1,900, so we're more than covered for the expenses that were listed. So I'm I'm really excited, and I think we'll have other sponsors as well. So, it's gonna be a fun time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other community announcements? There being none, we move to item 3, consent agenda. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? There being none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion?
I have a check in there for 37 something.
Okay, I'll second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, the motion carries.
No section. No, he does.
Mine's, if I don't say anything, just say yes.
You don't abstain, you have a conflict of interest, you disqualify yourself,
Okay.
so you don't count towards a quorum or anything, so it'll be a 3-0 vote.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we move to business item 4B. The staff report, please.
Good afternoon. Virgin Galactic currently leases, I think it's 4 test sites now, right? And one of these test sites, they just want to increase their acreage, so they want to add 1 additional acre. Because the lease term was originally 3 years, it does require board approval, and we've just included simply an amendment to the lease agreement to include this additional acre. So it's about another $1,000 a month for us in revenue. So my recommendation is to approve the lease amendment.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this matter? There being none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And second, is there any discussion or questions for staff? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, motion passes. Next, we move to item 4C, staff report, please.
Next item is ASB Avionics is requesting a loan subordination from the airport, and I noticed that the folks from ASB are actually here if the board does have any questions for them. We've done these in the past for ASB, and we've done these in the past for other tenants as well. I'll defer to counsel to elaborate on any legal concerns that the board may have on the loan subordination.
Yeah, so I reviewed the subordination agreement. What we, what we have historically done is typically the subordination would give an interest in real property, because this is public agency and it's public property, and you can't lien or foreclose public property. We revised these agreements to reflect that the interest is in the leasehold interest from the borrower. So what that means is if the borrower defaulted on the loan, then the lender's remedy is to come in and take over the lease. And they either assume the lease and operate the premises, or they assign it to someone else. But if that was to happen, they do it pursuant to the terms of the lease and within the parameters of the lease. So, for instance, your FAA grant requirements that space be used for aeronautical purposes, that still has to be followed by anyone who would come in the event of default. And it is subject to the board's consent, which would not be unreasonably withheld. It's pretty straightforward. This has been done a number of times in the past. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but that essentially, that's the real material terms for our purposes.
Motion for approval.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this matter? If there be none, is there any further discussion or comment from the board? There be none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There be none, motion carries. We next move to item 4D, staff report, please.
So I wanted to point out that there was a change made to the resolution, and that change was included with your board packet at your seat, and some additional copies here for the public. Yeah, if Scott can.
Yeah, I apologize for the change. I'm the one who made the change. You're required to have a conflict of interest code under the Political Reform Act. In that code, you designate who files the Statement of Economic Interest, which is otherwise known as Form 700. Now, recently, we have had changes in job titles, and so we had to amend the existing code to reflect those title changes, which if you go to page 2 of the document in front of you, you see here who the designated, we call them designated employees or designated filers are. If you looked at the resolution that went out with the board packet, you would notice that section C1 was different. And it included filing for those who made investment decisions, and it included the board of directors and CEO, and said that the filing was made with the FPPC. Well, I talked with the FPPC this morning because I hadn't seen that before. And there have been revisions to the PRA regulations over time. So I had looked at one of their model codes just to make sure that we were up to date. And they said that provision that was in the original resolution was if you're a multi-county agency. Because you're a single county agency, your Form 700s go to the County Board of Supervisors. So this has been revised to reflect that change. The other thing we did is the code was contained throughout 7 different sections in the admin code. It was always a pain to deal with those 7 sections, so I consolidated it into one section and then deleted those other 6 from the admin code, which you see in paragraph 2 of the resolution. Are there any questions?
Staff's recommendation is to approve.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this matter? There being none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Any questions? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 4E, staff report.
In the past, I reported on the CEO report that we were dealing with some water line issues at Hangar 210. This is Northrop's hangar on taxiway. It's really on taxiway Alpha and Bravo. It's kind of on the corner. It's not really an emergency repair because we have been able to isolate it. Nobody's without water, but it does absolutely need to be fixed. So the problem in this case is we can't really identify exactly what the repair needs to be until we get in there and see what the problem is. So we've broken this up into 2 different phases, and the first phase really is demoing the concrete and getting in there to see what the issue is, and then we'll ask them, hopefully within a couple of days, to give us another bid on actually making the repairs. So we put this out to bid to 3 different companies, and Christensen Brothers was the lowest at $25,000. So we would ask the board to approve this as the first phase of the repair work.
So, you're gonna do separate bids on the second phase then too?
We will, yeah, once they get in there, we'll have these companies come back and I'll give us bids on what the repairs actually will entail.
Staff's report is to recommend the Christian Brothers be approved. Is there any public comment? There being none, is there a motion?
I got a couple of questions. You want a motion first?
Yeah, let's do a motion first.
Okay, so moved.
Okay, I have a motion
Second.
and seconded. Now, any discussion or questions? Go ahead, Dr. Peterson.
We've got good history on this company.
So we actually haven't worked with this particular company before, but we have worked with the gentleman who's doing the work. So what was the BV Construction?
BV Construction.
BV Construction has done a lot of work out here in the past. It's a family-run organization, and part of the family is kind of putting the organization on hold right now. But the individual who's done the work out here in the past is now working temporarily for Christensen Brothers. So he's the one we contacted and got the quote, and we ended up getting the quote from Christensen Brothers directly instead of BV.
Griffith's based out of Bakersfield,
Yes.
and where's WM Lyle's based out?
Also
They're
Bakersfield.
also Bakersfield.
And all 3, well, Griffith and Lyles have done a lot of work out here as well.
Any idea why it's such a huge disparity? Somebody's seeing something that somebody else isn't seeing, or vice versa.
Yeah, Dave can he's been in.
Well, Point is, nobody's seeing because it's underneath the concrete.
Right.
So we just described what they have to do. They have to break out the concrete, remove the dirt, put shoring in to hold the slopes steady, and expose it to where we can see what needs to be done. And then we'll have 3 contractors bid it again, once we know what the repairs have to be.
So they didn't even come out for these bids? They did it over the phone?
No, they came out.
I understand about the leak, nobody knows what they're saying. I'm just surprised we have a 100% delta between the lowest and the highest bid. So again, somebody's.
We provided a pretty specific scope of work, so.
It's firm fixed price?
Yeah, and you know, it depends a lot upon the contractor, how much work he has to do at the time. This is virtually a nuisance project in some respects.
But it's firm fixed price.
Yes.
Yeah, we originally, the quotes that we originally got back from them were all time and materials, and it was just impossible to make a decision on that. So we gave them as specific scope of work as we could come up with and asked for a firm fixed price.
Any other questions from the board? Any other discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, motion passes.
Revenue was up to $755,530, and that was due to a FAA reimbursement for the 826 project. The expenses had went out in January, so then we got the reimbursement back in February. And then just to make a note on the AR report, Terry Roper actually paid in full, so they're no longer on the over 90 days. Yep, and actually I paid April as well.
How long is that?
Yeah, and we're setting up automatic payments with them as well.
For your report?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board on this matter? There being none, we move to item 5B, CEO report.
I'm happy to brief anything specific, if the board has any questions.
I got one, you say we got events every weekend in April. What are the events?
We have a busy month of April. So Kathy, do you know if the 99s are still flying out here? Are they doing the poker run?
They are doing the
Okay.
poker run.
So that's the first event, that's April 2nd. The following weekend, we have a car event.
The race?
It's not really a race, it's just sort of like a.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We do these usually twice a year.
Mojave Mile or something different?
It's Mojave Mile. And then the following weekend is the fly-in, and then after that is another car event. So with another organization that's also been out here before.
Ka-ching.
It's busy. It's going to be a busy time. April's always the busiest month for us.
Well, pray for good weather.
Are there any other questions? There being none, we move to item 5C, board committees. I don't think we really have a report, do we, Jim?
No, we haven't met. I think Karina's
They're still working,
on the
out.
I did meet with Bee last week, and I'm happy to update you later if you want or if I can.
Hey, you can update us.
Okay. So I did meet with Bee last Wednesday. We had a really good conversation, and I feel like I understand a lot more what's going on. So
B being, for the public, B being the director of the Mojave Public Utility District.
Be coy.
And we're to the point now where we're getting in the weeds a little bit, and we're collecting a lot more data from them, from MPUD, to really understand what the costs are that MPUD's incurring from our outflow discharge. So we're going to continue working together on this. I don't expect that it's going to take too much more time. We also did meet, because we already had him engaged with another engineering firm that's done a lot of work out here as well, just to start that conversation to see if it's necessary to get another assessment, just an independent assessment down the road. But I guess the bottom line is things are progressing. I feel much better about hopefully coming to the board in a couple weeks with a recommendation.
Thank you. All right, are there any board of director comments? There being none, we move to item 6, public comment. Is there any public comment on an item not on the agenda? There being none, we move to closed session. Thank you.